Welcome in, y'all. NFL Power Rankings after Week 10. Going to do things a bit different this time. Going to just kind of rank the teams within the tiers in no specific order within the tiers because people have been getting so caught up about, there are a couple spots lower than they should be, all this, and it's more just kind of like what tier they're in, really, because there's so many teams each week that you could swap around that I'm like, let's just group each team together and kind of get all the way up to those Super Bowl contenders. So we're going to start tier 6 here, bottom of the barrel, just the worst teams in football. And we'll start by talking about the Tennessee Titans. Only so much to say this week, no action. They're not a good football team. They haven't been playing well. The coach has been fired. Number 1 overall draft pick, but hasn't produced much. So just rough season in Tennessee. Next up, it's the Jets. They won this week, so great for them, but it was really off the back of 2 kick return touchdowns because the offense did not play well. They could not pass the ball to save their lives against the very good Cleveland defense, yes, but the Jets still just aren't great, but 2 straight wins for them, so things maybe are trending in the right direction. Next up in this tier, we have the Browns just losing to the Jets, so, stooping to new lows there. Also just a 2-win team. The offense is just pretty inept, pretty good defense, but we knew at the start of the year it just wasn't going to be a good one for this team. Next, we'll talk about the Saints. They went on the road in Carolina this week and got a great win. I was impressed by that, and that was classic Carolina. It's almost what we should have expected in that spot. They finally had a chance to go a couple games above 500, and they choke it away. But good win for the Saints, good win for the rookie quarterback there in New Orleans, and, good for them getting their second win of the season. And then the last team and down here, now this could be, you can maybe bump them up one, but it's the Raiders. They held the Broncos down all game, but a lot of teams have been doing that, honestly. The Raiders just have been rough this year. They've been better the last couple, I guess, since Bauer's been back, but this is just not a good team. I wouldn't blame you if you had them up one more tier, maybe like the bottom of the next tier, but they're just, it's been a rough year. Their expectations weren't sky high, but they were certainly higher than what they've achieved so far, that's for sure. The next tier we're going to talk about, this is, it's just not good. It's not like the bottom of the barrel, but they're not quite like, middle of the pack and above. They're just like, on average, they're not pretty good. And the first team we'll talk about there, it's the New York Giants. Just got the news a couple hours ago. They did fire Brian DeBall, and I'm a little surprised. I'm not surprised he ended up getting fired this year, but I thought it would have come earlier. But when he lasted to this point, I figured he would stay the year. Just a tough one. Dart goes down when they have the lead, and they squander the lead. The Bears come back to win. That was just a brutal one for the Giants. Hope Dart's okay. I hope he can go next week. They're a lot more fun when he's in there compared to Russ. Giants, they played pretty well this week. I think they're a team that can hang with a lot of people when Dart's in there. It looks like they're playing well, but just a tough one this week. Next up, we have the Falcons, who, the season started well. It started all right. Then you get a big win over the Bills, and it looks like the Falcons might be a team you got to really take seriously. And they've just really fallen off since then. It's been rough. This team has a lot of playmakers, a lot of potential, but they just can't get it going. I think Penix did not play well this week in London, in my opinion. I saw a lot of passes that he missed. I don't know what exactly is holding this team back, but they got to figure it out because I didn't think they'd be amazing this year, but they should be doing a bit better than they are currently doing. I know there's been some close losses in there, a lot of close losses, but they got to turn it around there. The next team, though, we're going to talk about the Miami Dolphins. A great win for them, an amazing win for them, borderline blowing out the Bills at home this week. Great win for the Dolphins. And, this is a team that, despite their struggles this year, and again, I didn't think they'd have an amazing year. I thought they'd, get 6-7 wins, but we do have to remember this team is no pushover. They have lost a lot of games this year, but they've also been in a lot of those games, some of them against very good teams. So on average, they're not very good. They're a little dysfunctional, but they can hang a little bit. The Dolphins can, and they're looking a bit better. Curious to see how they do this week overseas against Washington. Next up in the not good, It's the Bengals, and this is one that, man, they should be doing better these last couple weeks. Just at the very end, losing these games, it's been brutal. I know they were off this week, but this team could easily be 5-4 here. And I hear Burrow's aiming for a Thanksgiving return. So really, the way I see it, they have 2 games before that Thanksgiving game. If they can just win one of those 2, one is at Pittsburgh, one is home against New England. 2 tough games. But if they can win one of those 2, they'd be 4-7. They could run the table. It'd be really hard to run the table. Don't get me wrong. They have the Ravens twice. But if they ran the table, they might be in at that point. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on if they can get a win in one of these next 2 weeks. Next up, though, in the not good tier, it's the Cardinals. They'd been playing a lot of close games against good teams, losing tight. Then they went and beat the Cowboys. Things were looking up. And things just started bad early in Seattle. It was one of those games where you're a little outmatched on the field, and we know this. And then you get bad luck right off the gate, and you never stand a chance because 2 fumble returns, in the first quarter and a half for touchdowns for Seattle just about does Arizona in, because at that point it's really difficult to come back, especially when you're the not as good team. That's the luck you need to make an upset. So tough one there. They had a lot of failed 4th down conversions. I think they were 0 for 3 inside the 10-yard line maybe. So a lot of missed opportunities, but just a rough overall week. It started rough and stayed rough. So I think this is a team capable of winning games against good opponents and capable of hanging in there. But on average, they just haven't played well this year, and they really haven't finished either. And then the last team in this not good category, it's going to be the Commanders. I mean, they weren't playing well with Jaden Daniels, and now that he's out, they're just kind of a doormat at the moment these last little bit. So, I mean, I think they're good enough to be competitive in some games, but they got to figure out they've lost some motivation after such high hopes this year. They're going to need to find a way to turn it around, but this season's just about over for them. 3-7, tough year for Washington. So the next tier now we're going to talk about is, I'm just going to call it like the decent tier. They're fine. They have a lot of good traits, but there's some bad stuff in there as well. And no team demonstrates that more than the Carolina Panthers here. This is a team that has some big wins, has had some games they've looked really good. They went on the road and Green Bay got a win. They beat Atlanta at home 30-0, although that one doesn't look as good now. But they've had their ups, but they've also had their lows. I mean, they've looked bad in a lot of games this year. And this one was just inexcusable. You're 5-4 after a big win. You have a chance to really make a push for the playoffs, go 6-4, and you let the Saints come into your house and they just shut your offense down. So hot and cold for Carolina, but this team, they're not that great. They maybe are doing a bit better than expected, honestly. Next, it's the Texans, and I think this is a team that's going to keep climbing up. They're here right now because 4-5, but I think this is, even just talking about it right now, I think you could maybe have them a little higher in this, because this is a team that with that elite defense, man, they're scary. And the offense is starting to find some life a little bit. I know Stroud was out this week, but Mills and the squad did all right. And a huge comeback effort. What a comeback win that was. But this is a team that could maybe string together some wins and make a playoff push. We'll see. The defense has been elite, and they've played pretty well recently. But the next one we're going to talk about is the Vikings. This is a team that just... man, every time you think they're really going to get it going, they, one step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing. And I think it just comes down to they're fine. They're fine. I think McCarthy definitely is holding them back a bit at the moment. But I mean, this is a team, they can win big games. They went on the road and won at Detroit, but this isn't a team you can rely on to consistently do stuff like that. Maybe as the season goes on and McCarthy gets more comfortable, that can change. But right now, they're just kind of middle of the pack. And the last team in this is the Cowboys. Their highs have been real high, but, they do sit at 3-5-1. So it's hard to have them higher a tier than this. But it's hard to have them much lower because of how great the offense has looked at times this year. They just made a couple trades at the deadline. They were off this week, and they're back in action this upcoming week. in Las Vegas on Monday night. So we'll see what they look like there. Maybe they're making a push. We'll have to see it. 3-5-1. It's going to be tough. They still have to play the Eagles twice. They probably have to win one of those if they want a chance. So we'll see what they have in the bag of tricks. But Dak has looked really, really good this year. The offense has looked good. And we'll see what they have coming out of the bye week. But right now, they're right in the middle of the pack, I'd say. Then this next tier, it's kind of like you're good. Like you have a good record or you've shown a lot of good stuff. But I'm hesitant to push you into the next tier. So, like, how good are you? And the first one's the Bears, right? Good record. They're sitting with a great record right now. I think it's 6-3, I believe. But really, how good are they, right? Have they really beaten anyone? They scare me, and they're a team that I think, when they get into these NFC North games, specifically against the Packers and the Lions, I'm scared how they're going to fend in those. I hope they can do well. I hope they found something. Chicago struggled for such a long time that I like to see them turn it around. But, I mean, could you say you could trust the Bears right now? They were going to lose this week, right? If Dart stays in, I think they lose that game. They were looking rough. It was 20-10, midway through the fourth, was it? And it looked like the Giants were going to have that game. So a great comeback win, yes, but they've been shaky a lot of this year, even in their wins. Williams got to play better. We'll see for them sticking here in tier 3. The Steelers are another one of those. 5-4 now, is it, with Aaron Rodgers? It just hasn't gone great. They had the big win over Indy last week, but I said it going into this pick. It was a big reason the Chargers were one of my locks this week. The Steelers' 2 biggest wins, right? New England and Indianapolis. They forced a grand total of 11 turnovers. That's awesome, right? But you can't rely on that. That's not something you're going to consistently get against good teams. And it seems like when they aren't forcing that big amount against good teams, they lose. The Chargers are a good example. The Packers game a good example. So I think this is a team good. It's a very Steelers, Mike Tomlin recently type of team. I think they're good enough to beat the bad teams. And unless they get a lot of turnovers, I don't know if they're good enough to beat the great teams. So kind of right in the middle. I think they'll just miss the playoffs, honestly. Next up in this list is the 49ers. Sitting at 6-4. They just kind of got beat up on at home against their division rival. This is a team I've been low on, just a lot of injuries and a lot of injuries that aren't coming back. And their wins this year, it's not like, they had the week 1 win against Seattle, right? But that's a long time ago. And they had the win on the road against the Rams, but that game was a mess. I mean, I don't know if there's been one time this year that Seattle's played a good team and just looked really good and looked like the better team out there. I think they might still make the playoffs just with how easy their schedule is. But this is a team that definitely has a limited ceiling right now. Maybe they'll start getting some guys back, but there's some guys that are officially out for the year on defense and some big names. And I just don't know how you can rebound from that. So we'll see, but I think they're just slightly above middle of the pack there. And then next, it's Jacksonville. That was a brutal loss this week. They had that one in the bag. They're looking to move to, I believe, 6-3. And now they've fallen to, 5-4. And, they got to figure this thing out. I guess at the same time, they're doing a bit better than maybe you expected coming into the year. They had the high draft pick last year. They've had a couple rough years. Maybe they were exceeding expectations at first. Like, this team, I just don't think they're that great. They've had some nice wins. They beat the Chiefs. They went on the road in San Francisco and got a win. So they're capable, but I don't think that they're low enough to put them in the middle of the pack, but they're definitely not good enough to move them up. So they kind of sit right here. The next up, it's the Baltimore Ravens. And so tier 2, just as a spoiler, is Super Bowl contenders. And I think when Baltimore is fully healthy and they're in the playoffs, they're absolutely on that list. But it's hard to qualify them as a Super Bowl contender yet when, they're still have a losing record. They still got to make the playoffs. I think they will. I do think they're going to end up winning that division and making the playoffs, but they still have to do it. They can't slip up. The schedule is fairly favorable, but with Burrow coming back now, if they have to play the Burrow-led Bengals twice, their schedule looks a lot tougher than it did before that news. So they can't slip up just given their record, given the injuries they had earlier that resulted in some losses. So I think if they make the playoffs, they're a Super Bowl contender, but they have to get there first. So for now, it's hard to have them up in that category there. And this next one, it's the Chargers, but let me before you react, let me preface that I was kind of doing this during Sunday Night Football last night, and I still don't hate it though, because Super Bowl contender is a strong statement. I think the Chargers are a very good team, but I think they have some injury concerns, and I just don't know that the Chargers are very good, right? But if you're going to look me in the eyes and tell me I think this team is going to go win 2 road games in January in Arrowhead, or up to Buffalo or New England, Indy, wherever they have to go and win several road games if they don't win the West, which is a very stacked division right now, I just don't know that I could trust them to do it. I hope they can. Man, I hope the Chargers do good because they can't quite figure it out. They've been so close with good teams, it feels like recently. I hope they get over the hump, but I want to see a bit more health, honestly, out of them. Now, Tier 2, this is the time. It's Super Bowl contenders. Now you're like, Tier 2, why is that not Tier 1, right? So the difference between Tier 2 and Tier 1 is essentially that Tier 2 is 100% Super Bowl contenders. Even, I'll just spoil it, the Chiefs are in here where they're the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, but they're not in Tier 1. Same with some other teams in here. And it's because every team in this, despite being a Super Bowl contender, has looked shaky at some point this year or shaky recently, and they're they have some things they got to clean up, and Tier 1 is titled just firing on all cylinders. Those are teams that are just cruising right now. So that's the difference between 2 and 1. But if you're in this tier, you are absolutely a Super Bowl contender. Would not be shocked to see you playing in Santa Clara in February. So let's kick this thing off with the Buffalo Bills. Absolute Super Bowl contender, but what a horrible week it was. I mean, that happens a lot. That's why I picked Miami to cover. That happens a lot. Coming off of a big emotional win against Kansas City, you go on the road and play a lesser opponent. It's a trap game. That's a trap game, and they got beat. They got killed, honestly. But this team has proven they're, with Josh Allen at quarterback, they're going to be a Super Bowl contender. Come playoff time, they're going to be in the mix. Will they have to go on the road in the playoffs now? It's starting to look like a very strong possibility with how good the Patriots have been playing. Maybe they still come back and win that division. We'll have to see. Those two teams still meet later this year, so that'll be a fun game. But Buffalo's definitely a Super Bowl contender. Next up on this list, it is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are coming off a tight loss just a few moments ago against the Philadelphia Eagles, and that is 2 straight home losses for the Packers. I have this team in the Super Bowl contenders category, but with these last 2 weeks, they're fading. They need to be playing better. They have so much talent. They are very loaded. I know they're very, very injured and banged up at receiver, and their receiving group wasn't the strongest, to start out. That'll get a bit healthier, but they had a lot of missed opportunities tonight, really. They like they said, they passed midfield, 5 times that game, only resulting in 7 points. You just got to do better. You got to finish drives. They had a turnover down there. Just a rough home loss. They got to rebound now, 5-3-1. They got to start picking it up because they're going to fade from the Lions in this division. So now next we'll bring in the Kansas City Chiefs here. And again, reminder that all these tiers are in, the teams within them are in no particular order at all. The Chiefs are here, and there's no debating it. With Mahomes, with Reed, the whole thing they got going there, they're going to be a Super Bowl contender. They're absolutely not firing on all cylinders right now. They've looked shaky at times. The loss in Buffalo was a little rough. And they've had some questionable losses this year. They've also had some big wins. At the end of the day, if they make the dance, they're going to be, one of the big contenders. And currently, like I said, they are the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, which is both surprising but also makes sense. I'm surprised, someone hasn't passed them. Just, sitting at 5-4, there's a decent chance to end up on the road in the playoffs. So we'll have to see there, but, only so much you can say about the Chiefs. They were off this week. If they're in the dance, they're a threat. Next up, it's the Denver Broncos, and this is a team, thinking I almost could easily have them down a tier. 8-2, I just maybe felt like my hand was forced, I guess, because they're in line to maybe win the division. I mean, there's a lot of season left in front of us that they still have to do well. But if they were to get home field there, win the division, that would be certainly a big deal, helping them get to the Super Bowl. But this team, the offense, man, I said it heading into the week. I've said it in the past that it is rough at times. They have played some bad teams this year and barely won. The Titans, the Jets, the Giants, the Raiders. I feel like I'm missing one in there. Those are just off the top of my head. The Broncos have barely escaped. And sure, I've had some Broncos fans try to tell me, good teams find ways to win. You're right. That's what we say when a team's been cruising and they have one scare, maybe two scares against bad teams. That's not a saying you get to say when, 4 or 5 times in the first half of the season, you're barely beating bad opponents. So they need to step it up, and they have a big prove-it game this week. They're home against Kansas City. They're getting disrespected. I don't disagree with it, but they're getting disrespected. The Chiefs are 5-4, coming into the Broncos' house, who are 8-2, and the Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites. So the Broncos kind of need a statement here. I think they need a statement game, because if they let the Chiefs come in there and walk all over them, everyone's going to be like, "Yup, that's kind of what we thought about the Broncos. They've been not looking great, and they're going to fall apart." So they need a statement game this week. I think they have it in them. With a defense that good, they can be in a lot of games. And with Sean Payton, Bo Nix has a lot of talent. I think they can do better than they're doing. But next up on this list, it's the Indianapolis Colts. This is a team that, almost qualified for that top tier, but really, the loss against the Steelers was rough. And it was rough at times this week in Atlanta. It looked sketchy, but they ended up figuring it out and getting that win. They looked good in the fourth quarter. They're a Super Bowl contender. It's weird to say that about the Colts, and, we've been holding off saying that, but I think you have to start thinking it, because there's a very real chance they do get a 1 or a 2 seed. They get, multiple home games in the playoffs. They made the Sauce Gardner trade. I mean, you got to come through Indy. They have a real chance to do it this year. It'd be one of the biggest, shocks in a long time as far as like what they were expected preseason versus what they accomplished. So great for the Colts. I'm rooting for them. I love when teams aren't expected to do amazing and are. So I love to see it from the Colts. They're definitely a Super Bowl contender. But a good win this week, good overtime win, pulling that one off there in Germany. Next up on this list, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And really here, I think you could push them down a tier, and I wouldn't disagree. You could even swap them with the Chargers, because I think that'd be perfectly fine with me, with no argument there. The Bucs, they're injured, man. They're beat up. It's a very good roster, but it's a roster I think that needs to be healthy, and I don't know that it will be. They're gritty. They play hard, but they're dropping some games now, and now they head into Buffalo at 6-3, very at risk of dropping 6-4. Their next 2 games are at Buffalo and at the Rams. That's tough. That's a tough little stretch there, and there's a very real chance they're sitting at 6-5 in a couple weeks. So you could definitely have them off this list, but this is also a team that went into Seattle not all too long ago and beat the Seahawks. This is a team, they've played a lot of good games this year, and you can't discredit them for that. I think if they get in the dance, they're a threat to anybody, and they could definitely make a run. But next up, we're going to talk about the Detroit Lions. Good bounce back win for them this week. I mean, it was expected, right? Playing the Commanders, you were a solid 8-point favorites. They got the job done. The loss against the Vikings last week looks rough, but this is a Super Bowl contender any way you slice it. They're maybe not as pristine as they were last year, But they're figuring out ways to win, and the NFC is just wide open, that it wouldn't surprise me if they came out of it and won the whole thing. Very good team, very good roster. They know how to win football. Campbell's great. Only so much I could say about them here. Lions are definitely a Super Bowl contender. Then last up here, it is the Philadelphia Eagles in this tier. And now the Eagles are just coming off a very nice road victory in Green Bay. But much like a lot of the season, offensively specifically, they didn't look amazing. They're winning games, and they're winning games against good teams. So I'm not going to sit here and knock them for it. They're 7-2 with wins over a lot of good teams this season. But they're definitely not firing on all cylinders. However, they are a 100% Super Bowl contender. It feels like they easily could be the favorite to come out of the NFC. This is a great team. It was a good win tonight. This is one of those, even though it didn't look pretty, it is huge because you get a couple legs up on Green Bay. You get to 7-2. You're in that conversation for the first round bye right now. A lot of good stuff in Philly, especially with the teams in their division not looking hot at all. They should run away with the NFC East, and they got their eyes set on a repeat bid right now for Philly. Now our final tier, though, we have tier 1, and I'm just calling this firing on all cylinders. So they definitely meet the criteria for Super Bowl contender, I think, at this point. And they're teams that maybe aren't at the top of the odds to win it, but they just look elite recently. And we're going to start it out with the Rams. This is a team that their last 3 games have all kind of been blowout wins. 42-26 versus the Niners. They beat the Saints by over 20 points. They beat the Jaguars 35-7. They're rolling right now. And, their 2 losses this year, you look at them, it's a blocked field goal, 2 blocked field goals in the fourth quarter in Philadelphia, and then a blocked extra point and a couple fumbles in the red zone against San Fran in an OT loss. So, this is a very, very good team. They've been cruising on offense. Matthew Stafford looks the best he's ever been. A lot of good weapons there. You got Sean McVay calling the plays, absolute elite. And the defense has actually done pretty well. It's been a pretty solid defense. So this is a very well-rounded team, a well-coached team, a team with a good leader. This is a very, very dangerous team and is currently the odds-on favorite to win the NFC, and I don't disagree. I think the Rams are very dangerous right now, and the schedule it's not easy, but it's not too tough. So they could sneak out a little 1 seed here. But the team that we're competing with, let's go ahead and talk about them, Seattle Seahawks. These 2 teams play each other this week, and man, that's going to be a great game. It's unfortunate it's stuck in like 405 purgatory, but a great game nonetheless. This is going to be an awesome one to watch, and the winner will take first place in the NFC for the time being. Both teams are 7-2, but let's talk about Seattle here. Seattle's looked amazing. They have looked unstoppable, and their defense has just looked like a brick wall out there. They are playing amazing football. They're playing like Super Bowl contender, and are they? We're going to find out. I think this is a very good week to find that out. My biggest concern with them is, right now their biggest win is against the Steelers, which, you can only beat who you play. But they've lost to the Niners, they've lost to the Bucs. They haven't necessarily faced the stiffest of competition yet, but at the same time, they look so good that it makes me think they would still do well against, the top tier teams. We're going to find out. The schedule gets a little tougher down the stretch, but I'm very excited about the Seahawks team. Next up and last up, we're going to talk about the New England Patriots. Again, like I said, these are just the 3, I think, maybe the hottest teams in the NFL. And the Patriots, I think each week that goes by, people still continue to doubt them. And I don't blame you, right? They're still fairly far down the odds. But I think going into Tampa Bay and getting a win like that is a big deal. The Bucs aren't thought of as like a crazy powerhouse, but the Bucs are a very good team. That is not an easy place to go on the road and get a win. Bucs had a great record. And New England did it, and they were ahead for a lot of the game. I mean, they looked very good. They have some great wins this year. Both their losses were early in the season. One of the losses was week 1 against Vegas, whatever. Week 1, right? Forget about it. Their other loss was a game where they turned the ball over 5 times with 4 fumbles, and they still only lost by 1 score to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this is a team that you really can't find that much to fault them on this year. They look very, very good. It's very exciting. Another team that they're expected to be, decent this year, but not this good. And that's just so exciting. So a lot of exciting stuff, a lot of unpredictable stuff happening in the league this year, and it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to all of it. I'm looking forward to see how this week turns out and how the playoff seeding turns out. How weird would it be if we had like the Patriots or Colts as the 1 seed in the AFC and like the Seahawks as the 1 seed in the NFC or something? That would just be totally unexpected and a lot of fun. Could lead to a very different and exciting Super Bowl matchup. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's been a great few weeks of football so far, and we're hoping to have another great one this week. I got my picks video coming out tomorrow. We'll do a locks video on Friday. Been doing pretty good on those, so make sure you check them out.